Shalom Aleichem. Good evening. My name is Rabbi Yitzchok Moully. I think I'm in the category of dear friend. I would like to think that I'm a dear friend of Reb Moshe. We're now neighbors in Hillside, and he invited me to come share. So share I will. So my formal name is Yitzchok Moully, Rabbi Moully to some, and to others, I'm known as the pop art rabbi. What's pop art? You're looking at me a little funny. No idea. All right, good. So we're in for an education. I'll share some thoughts, some ideas with you. I'm an artist. I'm a full-time artist. I'm a chassid and an artist. And I suppose that's why we chose tonight's subject, Chassidus and art. Art and Chassidus. The combination, interplay between these two worlds, these seemingly two distinct, different worlds coming together. So the first place to begin with, I think, is Chassidic art. Bring these two worlds together. What is Chassidic art? What's the origins of Chassidic art? What's Chassidic art today? We know of two painters, two artists, Handel Lieberman and Handel Lieberman and I'm drawing a blank on the other Kleinman. Thank you. Good. I'm glad someone's listening here. The two, 19th century Hasidic artists. But I think with the advent of photography, as photography in the world at large came about, the idea of having the face of a Rebbe in our homes became prevalent, and as photography became more prevalent, the idea of having an image became the conversation about Torah, and an engraven image is dealt with much earlier on. It's not a problem to have a photo, to have a painting of a Rebbe, of a tzaddik in our home. And from photography began paintings of Rabbi, and from there it broadened a little further. So how broad did it get? What's Chassidic art? The Rebbe told Handel Lieberman, and he had a troubled life back in Russia, and he studied in one of the great art colleges in Russia, and he worked for the communists, and he created works of art for them. And during the war and after the war, he was a very troubled man, and he wrote to the Rebbe, and there's a famous letter. The Rebbe writes a letter to a depressed artist, and he's saying that his whole world was turned upside down. He has nothing left of his world. The only thing that he has left is his art, and until then, his art was a source of conflict to his Chassidishkeit, to his Chassidic elements. And the Rebbe told him that in previous generations, art and Chassidus didn't fit together. But in our generation, art can be used as a means of expressing Chassidus, which is a revolutionary concept that the Rebbe started.
Kleinman was his name.
Yes, thank you. It was Zalman Kleinman and Handel Lieberman. All right, so you got Google on the end over there? I'll turn to you for all other questions. You'll be my fact checker, please.
No, I went to Yeshiva with his son.
Ah, beautiful. Do you have some stories for us? No? Okay. Stories will have to come from me then.
Where did you learn art from?
Where did I learn art? I'm a self-taught artist. We'll get to me soon. First, we'll lay some groundworks about the concepts of art and Chassidus and so on.
What kind of art you do?
What kind of? I do pop art. Oh, what's pop art? You see, we're back to that again.
Portrait artist.
I do contemporary Chassidic art, whatever that means. We got a lot of. I don't know art history that well, but I'll give you an art lesson.
Not like a banana on a painting.
There's nothing like a banana on a wall, exactly. That's contemporary art. There we go. So, the Rebbe told Handel Lieberman that in today's world, you can combine these two elements, this idea of art and Chassidus. And you may be familiar with a book by Chaim Potok by the name of My Name is Asher Lev. And in that book, it's a fictitious book. It's based on a lot of Chassidim that's perhaps based on the Chabad Chassidim. Is that there's this young child, Asher Lev, and he's a very gifted artist. And his struggle is to bring these two worlds of his growing up as a child, a chassid, as a child in a Chassidic family, and being an artist. And Chaim Potok goes a different direction. He ends up, painting also, interesting things that are not, appropriate for halacha. To the point that he ends up painting his mother being crucified. Which is an extreme ending to the book, but it's this question, this central question of Chassidus and art, Chassidus with art. Are they two different worlds? Can we bring them together? And so on. And the Rebbe tells us that we not only we can, but we should and we must. That in today's world, Chassidus and art is a vehicle for expressing Chassidus, for sharing Chassidus, for sharing ideas of Torah. To the point that the Rebbe actually paid personally from his own funds for Nachshon, for Baruch Nachshon, to go to art school. The Rebbe sent him to Paris, and it was zelu mazeh that for Nachshon to go and to surround himself with the vibe, the energy of Paris, and to learn in Sorbonne. I don't know what school he went to actually. A fact checker at the end of the table may help us. But Baruch Nachshon took that energy, which art can be, art, a banana and some duct tape is pretty parav. There's a lot of art out there that's very hepech Torah. And art has a tendency to push boundaries and push envelopes, and a lot of that is hepech Torah. And the Rebbe sent Baruch Nachshon to go and to take that energy and to transform it into Kedusha. So that's the elements of art and Chassidus. Talking art, Chassidic art. Baruch Nachshon is definitely a Chassidic artist, and he yes?
Maybe the reason that the Rabbi sent Nachshon there to bring back to Yiddishkeit a lot of Jewish people there in arts in Paris.
Absolutely, very much so. It's art itself as a concept, and then the people who are involved in art, which a good percentage are Jewish people, absolutely, because it's seeking, and art has the finer elements, it's more soulful. To the point that the Rebbe didn't just want him as an artist, but the Rebbe wanted lithographs, and Michal Machnik, another famous Hasidic artist, would go into Yechidus and show the Rebbe his pieces, and the Rebbe would critique them, and the Rebbe would encourage him, and the Rebbe would encourage him to make prints, lithographs, and disseminate to get it out there. The Rebbe has the Tem Mevtzayim, the Rebbe's Tem Mevtzayim, which we'll touch upon later. But one of them is Bayis Malas Svarim, a house full of Jewish books. We're surrounded by Jewish books, and it's not just for the books. If the way I understand, it's not just for the books themselves, but the books that create an environment. The Bayis Malas Svarim, the idea of the mitzvah Bayis Malas Svarim, is to create an environment, a Jewish environment. And the Rebbe pushed a number of artists to create scenes of Torah, scenes of mitzvahs, scenes of cheder, scenes of shul, scenes of the different Yomim Tovim. Michal, yeah. Michal Machnik, a dear friend.
No. There's the other one. I don't know. I think also Michal. He made a painting of people coming up to the base of Mikdash, how it's going to look like.
Yes, Michal.
I don't know what his last name is.
With the letters, a tremendous amount of letters. Yeah, and the Rebbe gave him great kiruvim, and he has a scene of Geula, Mashiach, with tremendous amount of details, and the Rebbe was involved in the details and in helping him craft, the piece, and including all these different details, and to get it in order to share with others. So we have Chassidic art as a concept, and but now let's start picking apart art and picking apart the relationship of art and Chassidus and how they combine, not just for Chassidic art, but for all art in general. And I'm a self-taught artist. I never went to art school. I'm a yeshiva boy. I went to the Rabbinical College in Australia, followed by the Rabbinical College of America in Morristown, followed by, thank God I'm here, we've got a fellow artist. I thought there's a guitar in your hand, but hey, skateboard's cool too. L'chaim. And I got my smicha in Venice, Italy, and I went on shlichus. Kind of small town America, a little town called Basking Ridge. I'm a self-taught artist. How did I get into art? Well, we'll get to that soon again. But in art, the one thing that I can tell you about art is that there are three basic elements to almost every piece of expression. Every idea that's out there is kind of fits under these three categories. And number one is what you say, your subject matter. Really, any form of expression has a subject matter. If it's a painting, you look at the painting. What's on the painting? Is it a still life? Is it a landscape? Is it a banana and duct tape? It's a banana. That's what it is. It's duct tape. That's what it is. I'm going to keep coming back to that. What you say, the subject matter. And as a Chassidic artist, and as we mentioned about the Rebbe and the art that the Rebbe encouraged, the subject matter is scenes of Torah mitzvahs, scenes of art, scenes of learning, of davening, of the Yomim Tovim, and so on. And every artist, across all music, photography, everything, there's a subject matter. There's something there. How connected the subject matter is to the artist is to be seen. The step two of all creativity is how you say it, your method of expression. And here it really is where it gets exciting. And here this is what separates, no two artists are the same. Is how you say it is, combined between these two of what you say and how you say it, you get to express yourself. How you say it could be simple as photography or music or a guitar music or a banjo or a play or canvas or spray paint or silk screen, and all that runs the gamut of creativity. So really these two elements of what you say and how you say it are the two basic ingredients of all creativity. The next step is now how you share it with the world. What do you do with it? What's the purpose of this piece of creation that you created? Is it about you? Is it about your self-expression? And I remember hearing an artist that he makes pieces and then he burns them. Because that's the journey that he's on and that's what he wants to achieve. And he doesn't share it with the soul. He doesn't take a photo of it. It comes into the world to serve his creative needs, and then he burns it. And not because they're not good enough, not because they don't, but it's all about him.
Democratic cities.
Sorry?
Like in the democratic cities.
L'chaim. Thank you very much. But part 3 really is relevant to us in our conversation of Chassidic art. Part 3 is what do you do with it? There's what you say, there's how you say it, and what do you do with it next? And as a chassid, and being surrounded by these ideas and these Chassidic artists that came before me, it's really all about sharing with others. It's really all about connecting, using art as a vehicle, as a mechanism to connect to others in a way that cannot be done in a different form. Art has a means of expression in a way that, in a means of communicating that cannot be done by a sefer in a Baal Shem Tov library. Not everyone's going to come to the Baal Shem Tov library. I love you guys, but and I realized, on my own journey, that I was a shliach, and I was a youth rabbi at a Chabad center in Basking Ridge, New Jersey, and I ended up as an artist, and it's a whole long journey, and we'll see if we have time to get to that. But what I can achieve as an artist is hopefully greater and more than what I could achieve just as a rabbi. So we have Hasidic art. We have these three concepts: what you say, how you share it with the world. But I want to also explore the creative process al pi Chassidus. And what absolutely fascinated me, and I'm a Talmud via the internet of Rabbi Yossi Patil. Sometimes I get to actually, get into the same room that he's there, and he fabrangs, and it's incredible. But Rabbi Yossi Patil is an incredible teacher, and he already a number of years ago started teaching Tanya in depth. He has a Tanya according to Chitas, but Tanya in depth. It took him approximately 8 hours of classes to introduce Tanya. Just the introduction was 8 hours. So this is Tanya in depth. First is what Chassidus, it's phenomenal stuff. It's phenomenal stuff. But you get into Shir Gimel, Perek Gimel. You get to Perek Gimel, and we start talking about the human capacities, the Esa Kochas HaNefesh, the 10 capacities of the soul. And of course, what we have is a reflection of what the Eibishter gave us. It's a reflection of the Eibishter. So if we understand our own Esa Kochas HaNefesh, it gives us a window into understanding the Eibishter and how the Eibishter goes about things. And the first of the Esa Kochas is Chachma. Chachma. Chabad, we've all heard of Chabad. Chabad is made up of the acronym of Chachma, Bina, and Das. What's Chachma? So Chachma has been explained as Bria Kamavrik, this flash of lightning. This idea, this lightning that comes to you. Driving here, there's a lot of flashes of lightning. And you can see for moments in the dark. But Rabbi Patil dug underneath and explained, and it's phenomenal. I will attempt to explain to you the idea, the creative process al pi Chassidus. The idea of, we're talking about art. Art is only one small part of creativity, and creativity is really one small part of personal expression. And any chiddush, any concept, any idea that a person has is new. I mean, Torah is all about chidush Torah. We're pushing children to learn, to understand, to bachim and yeshiva, to write chidushim and shalas. The idea of coming up with a new novel thought, a new concept in Torah is nothing new. And actually reminds me of the story of Rabbi Yosef Karo, who was living in Tzvas, and he was learning a particular part of Gemara, and he found it very, very difficult. And I wish I remember all the details of the story. I apologize that I don't, but he found it very, very difficult. And he worked, and I think he fasted, and he went to mikvah, and it was a huge ordeal and process. He had this concept, and he couldn't understand. And again, I don't remember if Eliyahu Novi came to him or he got the answer in a dream or whatever it was. He finally broke through, and he finally understood this concept, and he felt very proud, content, but Baruch Hashem that he broke through, and he understood. He now finally understood Pshat in the Gemara. And he was walking the next day through Tzvas, and he heard a Melamed teaching a group of young students this exact same Masechta in Gemara, this exact same part in the Gemara. So he stopped to listen. What's this Melamed going to say? And he listens. And the Melamed teaching children explains the Gemara exactly as he came to the conclusion after a tremendous amount of effort. And he was flabbergasted. How is it possible that he spent so much time working on understanding this Gemara, and all of a sudden this Melamed is teaching the exact same Pshat to the children as though just this is Pshat? And again, I don't know if he turned to Eliyahu Novi or whatever it is, but it was explained that he was Pasach HaTzinor. This concept wasn't here in the world. It wasn't available. Nobody had this concept. And through his tremendous amount of effort, he brought this concept into the world. And once he brought it into the world, it became available to everybody. And it became available to everybody to the point that this chachma, this concept, was just available for this school teacher, for this Melamed to share with his students. So what's the creative process, Alpi Chassidus? Is very similar to this scenario. So let's break it. Let's take apart this scenario. Is that the first part of Chachma? What's Chachma? Is the words koyach ma, the capacity, the koyach, the strength of ma. And koyach can be translated as a tool. So it's the tool of ma. Ma means what? The tool of what? What does that mean? What's the explanation of that? Step one in Chachma is having a problem. Step one in Chachma is having a concept that you're trying to grasp, that you're trying to understand, a problem. And it can be a mathematical problem, it can be a science problem, it can be a Chassidus problem, it can be a Gemara problem, it can be an art problem. But you have a problem, and you're trying to resolve it, you're trying to find a solution to this problem. And you work in whatever form of work that you do, but it's generally, it's a cognitive process. And you think, and you're trying to understand, and you're trying to grapple. And in the Shir, Rabbi Patil talked about Einstein and his form of grappling, and his questions and his resolutions, and further questions and so on. Step one is putting in tremendous amount of effort. Step two is having bittul. Step two is koyach ma, is the koyach, the capacity to say, ma, I don't know, I give up. I give up, not like a child doing homework after 5 minutes, I give up. But I come to an impasse. I'm trying, I'm working. I'm really trying to understand this concept, but I can't. I can't get through to the other side. There is a resolution, but I'm not there yet. And that ability to say ma, the ability to say I don't know, the ability to say, to surrender to a higher power, to the Eibishter, that we don't know. And then comes a Bria Kamavrik. Then comes the flash of lightning. Then it doesn't happen moments later. It happens at a time later where you're more relaxed. They talk about, having insight in the shower, having insight on a walk. Different creatives would have different schedules that they would, But what is it? What's this koyach ma? What's this bria kamavrik? What's this flash of lightning? Is your chaya yechida, the upper part of a person's neshama, coming down, your subconscious, coming down to your nefesh ruach neshama, to your lower level of neshama, and giving you this idea. That your neshama, your upper neshama, is coming to talk to your lower neshama. Your subconscious is coming to your conscious and giving you this flash of lightning. So you are sharing it with you. It's one level of your neshama sharing it with the other level of your neshama. But that is the creative breakthrough. That is the chachma process, as explained in Tanya. And there are different levels of chachma, and chachma goes all the way up. But in terms of creativity, in terms of a chiddush, this is the process. And it blew my mind when I heard it. And we hear the story of Rabbi Yosef Karo, and this idea of he had a problem, he resolved the problem, and then it became available to everybody else. But I actually had an experience, this breakthrough, even before I learned about this idea of chachma. And I'll share with you just as a method of seeing the process in action. Is I had a painting. Well, it was a Tuesday morning. It was a Tuesday morning. We woke up, and the news came through from Eretz Yisrael that there was a pigor, there was a terrorist attack. This is years ago. A terrorist attack in Har Nof, in a small suburb, a part of Yerushalayim. And there was a group of rabbis, there were a group of Yidden who gathered to daven Shachris, and they were killed. They were butchered, literally. 2 Arabs came in with hatchets and knives, and they came and they killed Yidden for being Jewish and davening in Yerushalayim.
5 people, basic Knesses.
5 people, in the basic Knesses. Yep.
Inside the shul.
And it's not the first terrorist attack that we've got, but there was such it was so heavy, it was so intense, that as an artist I felt I needed to do something. I need to respond in some way. And on a Tuesday I would go to an art class. So I thought, I had my plan of what I was going to paint. And instead I put that aside and I called a Rav and I said, can I take a talus and rip the talus and create a painting that essentially resembles the crime scene, resembles the floor of the shul? And the Rav said that as long as its tzitzis are intact, the corners are intact, I could take the beged, I could take the talus and rip it and use it, because I'm not being disrespectful, hopefully I'm being, I'm ripping it, but it's for the sake of art, for the sake of something. So I did, and I worked flat on a table, and I took a talus, I ripped it in a few places, and essentially I recreated the scene of the floor of the shul. And you can Google it, you can see it on my website.
What does the talus have to do with the floor?
The crime scene, the photos of the shul, with talis, they were wearing talesim in blood, and they were wearing talesim, so that the scene of the shul, the photos that we got of the shul, were with talesim in blood, and a few straps of tzitzis. So I painted that with red paint and other things, but yeah, I painted.
Why did you need to tear the talus? You could have painted it from a picture, from a photo.
I wanted to use a real talus.
Why did you get by doing that?
I wanted to use a real talus, and I wanted to dip it in the red paint, and I wanted to have a visceral experience, to get more detail, and really, life goes on, things move, and we forget. I wanted to memorialize the victims with this painting, that whenever someone would see this painting, they would know exactly what it is.
What did the Rav say that the tzitzis had to be intact? I mean,
the real mitzvah of tzitzis are the corners.
Right, but I would think that the tzitzis should not be intact. That way, you're not desecrating a talus.
So, right, that is. I understand the logic of what you're thinking. Yeah. Is that, but then it's not a talus at all. Then it's just a garment, and there's no issues.
Well,
I dafka wanted a talus.
But you can still see that it's a talus.
I wanted to still see it's a talus. I know. This is what he told me. Kacha. When you're ready to rip a talus, chas shalom, call it up first. In the name of art. So I did. I created this painting, and you look at it. You see straight away what it is. It's pretty intense. Oh.
Those are the names?
Yeah, I don't remember all the names, but yeah, that's the 5 victims.
I did an expression of a mantle. I'll tell you.
Oh, so you made, incredible. So we're both, what you say is the same thing. We both were impacted by this experience, and we both did something. How we say it, were very different. But equally, we shared it with the world. So he made a mantle, memorializing, remembering these 5 victims, and I made a painting, memorializing these 5 victims. Again, every piece of expression has these elements. What you say, how you share it with the world. So I finished the painting, and I was satisfied with the painting that it's a complete painting. And then I stood there, and in that moment I finished the painting and I said, wait a second, I can't just put this painting up as is, as a finished piece, the end. I need to make another painting that's positive and uplifting with the rest of the talus that was sitting on the side of the table. Because as a collective, as Am Yisrael, this is not our whole story. We get knocked down, there've been pogroms, there've been Holocaust, there've been all sorts of horrible things, but we continue to endure. And I told myself in that moment, I need to make a second painting that's positive and uplifting with a piece of the same talus. That was my problem. And my problem nagged at me and persisted, and I didn't have a resolution. And I would go and I would travel with my paintings. I'd put it all my, I have a big crate, and I'd travel all over the country, and I'd put all my paintings on display, and that painting would be on display together with it. And I would say to the audience, I would talk about each piece on display and the ideas behind them and the concepts, and I'd explain this piece, and I'd say, but it's not complete, because there's another painting that needs to be made, but I don't know what. I knew, but I didn't know. I had a problem. And the first yard site of Har Nof came and went, and I started to feel like a fraud. because I don't know. And at some point I must have given up. At some point I must have had the bittul of saying, I don't know. See, here I have a real problem, and I really want to resolve the problem, and I know what it is. I have the parameters that I want to make a second painting with a talus that's positive and uplifting, but I don't know what. And then a year later, a little bit after, it was Yudal Kislev, that Sarah Litvin and Ariel Beagle, two beautiful Yidden, were getting ready to get married. And the Thursday before their wedding, her father and brother were murdered by terrorists on their way to the Ufruf. And her sister was sitting in the back seat, and Baruch Hashem, she survived. Incredible Nissim. And here she is sitting Shiva. Instead of her father walking her down to the chuppah, she's sitting Shiva. And Sarah said the most incredible prophetic words. She said, Am Yisrael is invited to my wedding. And the most incredible thing happened, is that Am Yisrael came to her wedding. From across Israeli society, from across the world. I still kick myself that I didn't jump on a plane and go. Communities made a girdle, and everyone put in $50, $100, and they pulled out a name, and they sent one representative to the wedding to represent that community. And you couldn't get in. There was a line out the door, and you got in. You were told you have 20 minutes. You get in, you say Mazel Tov Chassan Kala, you dance a little bit, and you get out because someone else wants to come in. And in the streets they were singing Am Yisrael Chai, and it was such a powerful piece. The view, the whole thing coming together. I realized this is my second painting. My second painting, and it took me, once I realized the power of it, it blew me away. Again, just to backtrack for those who just came in, we're talking about Chachma. We're talking about the creative, Chachma al Pitanya. The way Tanya explains the process of Chachma. Chachma is Koyach Ma. Koyach Ma, what's Koyach Ma? Koyach Ma is the capacity of what? What does it mean, the capacity of what? Is that we have a problem, and I'm describing my problem. We have a creative problem. Einstein had his problems. We talked to earlier about Rabbi Yosef Kara and his problems trying to understand a Blat Gemara. And step one of the creative process is having a problem and fighting and trying very hard to resolve the problem. Step two of the Chachma process is bittul, of saying I don't know. And step three, which we're up to, is I realized is when you have that bittul, then your Chaya Yechida, your subconscious, talks to your Nefesh Ruach Neshama, to your conscious mind, and you get that Bria Kamav, you get that flash of lightning that comes from your subconscious to your conscious, from your Neshama, from one part of Neshama to the other part of Neshama, and from there you go into Bina and Das. So I realized this is my second painting. And it's titled Am Yisrael Chai, and it's a little bit bigger than the first one, and it's a scene of a chassan and kala under a chuppah. And the chuppah is a piece of the same talus. It's ripped, there's some red dots on it, and I hang them together. So all the works that I have, these two pieces are not for sale. And the reason why they're not for sale is because they belong together as a set, and they belong somewhere in a museum to share a collective, as I say, the arc, the Tisha B'Av to Tu B'Av arc, that we get knocked down. We have gotten knocked down, and hopefully never again will we be knocked down, but we rise up again. And the Tisha B'Av to Tu B'Av, and the Tzira B'Ashlemusa, the full moon of Tu B'Av, is this idea. So here is understanding the creative process the creative process al pi Chassidus. And every artist worth his salt, every creative worth his salt, every person who thinks ideas goes through this process. And this is the way Tanya explains the creative process. So we have Chassidus, we have art, we have Chassidic art, we have the creative process al pi Chassidus. What's left? What's left is
how you share it with the world.
How you share it with the world, right? How you share it with the world.
It's in your house now, right?
Those two paintings are in my house.
Why don't you share it with the world?
I have shared it with the world. This past Tisha B'Av, I brought them out and I spoke about them. They have been on display.
Yeah.
At the Jewish Museum of New Jersey. They've been on display wherever I get the opportunity to display my art, really.
And it's on your website.
And it's on my website. I remember, so I want to make a short film about the two pieces, and I'm looking. I've reached out to a few different places to try to get, to get them in a museum. The most recent place that I want to do is there's a new museum of the Jewish people somewhere in Tel Aviv. To put it there, to share this story, this idea with others. Maybe I'll share a little bit of my own history, my own journey, because fine, so creativity is good, Chiddushei Torah is good, but the title of my speech sometimes is, "What's a good Jewish rabbi doing painting?" Is it past? Is it appropriate? Is it the right thing? Is it bittul Torah? Is it really helping others? Is it doing anything for the greater good of the world at large? What's the function of art? What's the purpose of art? So we know for sure that the Eibishter is the Eibishter. We talk about the Eibishter as the creator. Talking about Ma'aseh Bereishis, the Eibishter is the ultimate creator. So the Eibishter is into creativity. But when the Eibishter wanted a house for himself, then the Mishkan is very colorful. I wish all our shuls today were as colorful as the Mishkan, and Tchelis, Vargamon, Telashani, the whole 9 yards. So definitely the Eibishter's into creativity. And actually a sidebar, my Hayom Yom, I'm born in Elul, Chaf Elul, and the Hayom Yom for Chaf Elul is a hard one. It stings a little bit. I'll say it in Yiddish and translate that the Rebbe writes, "Der was is nidrik und grob, sich nid seine edne Grobkeit und Niederkeit." He who is low and crass doesn't realize his own lowliness and crassness. And through my years as a bacher and later, every year I had a different perspective on this idea. It's a hard one, no matter how good you get, there's still nidrik and grob. And one year, there's a new Hayom Yom that came out with all the Marmakomis of where the Rebbe sourced the different concepts, because it's just a concept, it's a statement. So what is it? This statement comes from a Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe. And the Frierdiker Rebbe is talking about the difference between the neshama and the guf. We are made up of two elements that don't belong together by any stretch of the imagination. The neshama and the guf are such polar opposites. And this is what the Frierdiker Rebbe was saying. That der was is nidik and grab, the guf, who's low and crass, doesn't know how low and crass it is. The guf is hanging out with the neshama. The neshama is enlivening the guf. The guf feels, yeah, we're partners. We're in this together. You're a part. You're shtik Eibishter. Yeah, me too. I'm a shtik Eibishter. The guf is nidrik and grab, to no end, and the neshama is holy. And this year, the perspective that I have is this idea of creativity. One of the elements of creativity is bringing together two opposite thoughts, two totally contrasting things, are bringing it together. And chadash tachas shemesh. There's nothing new under the sun. But what's creativity, right? So we're saying about having a problem, resolving a problem. That's one side of creativity. The other side of creativity is bringing together disparate concepts, disparate things, and bringing it together in a whole new way that they haven't been seen before. So it dawned on me that the Eibishter is the ultimate creative, that he took neshama and guf, these two things that don't belong together at all, and put them together and created us. So this is my journey. This is my journey as an artist to take disparate ideas and to bring it together and to hopefully to produce something beautiful. So what's my story? My story begins, I'm going to go through all the details, but I was born in Darwin, Australia, the official capital of nowhere, the outback in Australia. What's a good Hasidic family doing there? The answer is my parents were hippies, and they were on a journey, and I came along for the journey. And we ended up in Melbourne when my grandfather wasn't well. They're originally from Egypt. And my grandfather's in hospital. My mother didn't know what to do with me. She went to the local shul. She went to daven for her father. She met a Chabad rabbi. I'm jumping off the roofs. And we lived in the outback coming to suburbia. And she enrolled me in Jewish day school. And my first day of school was the day my grandfather passed away. It's as though he wasn't ready to let go until he knew that we were spiritually provided for. So we're there in Yeshiva, the Yeshiva Center in Melbourne, Yeshiva College in Melbourne, and Shiva Shloshim, but my mother's still a hippie, she's not going to, suburbia is not going to cut it. So where in the world could she have her love of nature together with her newfound love of Yiddishkeit? She thought was a religious kibbutz in Eretz Yisrael. So that was the plan, to go to Eretz Yisrael, and we gathered, we saved, paperwork, this, that, and the other. And I was 4 years old at the time. I don't know why they didn't consult me, because to get from Australia to Israel, you go this way. Instead, we went, all the way around the world via Los Angeles, via New York, to Eretz Yisrael. Fine. We're in LA for 10 days. We're in New York for 10 days. We don't know anyone. Mamish don't know anyone in New York, but we know people who know people who know people who know the Chabad network. And we end up finding someone opens up their home, 2 beds for us in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. So here we are going from the outback via Melbourne to Crown Heights, Brooklyn. And we're there, Tishrei 1985. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur 1985. And we're going to be there, fine. So we're there as tourists. I don't know. We're there as starry-eyed, visitors, but we're surrounded by Chassidim. And people said, "You're on a journey. You're coming from the outback. You're changing life. You're becoming more frum. You're on your way to a kibbutz in Eretz Yisrael. Write a letter to the Rebbe. Write a letter to the Rebbe and get a bracha. Get a bracha for your journey." Sounds fair enough. So my mother wrote, and the Rebbe said, it was, unfortunately, it wasn't a written letter, it was a verbal response to a label groaner called on the phone, and the Rebbe said, "Stay here for the time being, and through friends accomplish what you're here to accomplish." And we ended up staying in Crown Heights for 4.5 years. So 10 days became 4.5 years. And what were we there to accomplish? We were there to accomplish my chinuch. In hindsight, all the pieces fit together very nicely. In hindsight, it was my chinuch, because had we gone straight from there to Eretz Yisrael, who knows what would have happened. It was a religious kibbutz, but still, who knows. And at the end of 4.5 years, circumstance changed, and it was time to go back home. And so again, my mother wrote to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, "Yes, it's time to go back home." The Rebbe gave us a brach to go back home. By then, we're card-carrying members. And I continued in the Yeshiva College, went back to the same school. But in the meantime, these 4.5 years was such impressionable years on me. And to be there every Shabbos morning in 770 before 10 a.m. and to be in downstairs in the Gan Eden Atachten, and you'd hear the door open, the Rebbe would walk out, and you see the Rebbe walking down the stairs. And for a 5-year-old child, the power that you had, because you walked into shul, and in the back of 770 you go, "Shh," and thousands of people are quiet because a little kid goes, "Shh." Of course, that's code that Rebbe's coming. And would go back to the hallway, a narrow hallway, not wider than this table, with the chairs, and the Rebbe would come and say Good Shabbos to each kid on both sides of the table, both sides of the hallway. And the Rebbe would go daven, go gehobin tefillas, and would go valgez charum, would run around. I remember sitting under the Rebbe's feet, verbringen. I'd only do it once a year for my birthday because I didn't have that much zitzfleisch every week, and dollars, and I was there for Hey Tavis. I was in grade 2 in Alatera across the road. And someone came into our teacher and whispered to him in the ear. We finished the pasuk. He said, "Kids, get your bags together." He took us across the road to 770. He said, "Class dismissed." 11 a.m. on Hey Tavis. I mean, the Giluyim that I had as a child, and after Chopei Shvat and going into the Rebbe's house, and it impacted me. It impacted me in a real way. And then we went back 4.5 years later. We went back to Melbourne. And as I grew up, I got older, Bach in Yeshiva, I thought, what did Rebbe want? What did the Rebbe want? What did Rebbe need from us? So many people came through and got a bracha. So many people came through, got $1 from the Rebbe. So many people came through and they continued with their life. They have a great memory of the time that the dollar they got from the Rebbe. What did Rebbe need us for 4.5 years? And one thing I knew, that if not for that, I wouldn't be frum, I wouldn't be who knows where I'd be? I'd be back to the outback, back to being a hippie, being a surfer. I gravitate to the waves. That's my natural. So I thought, if that Rebbe needs me, then that Rebbe needs me. So what can I do? As I continued through yeshiva, I thought, what's the ultimate that I could be? What can I do? How can I give back? I don't like the words give back, but how can I be the best Yitzchok Moully that I can be? And I thought to become a shliach. I got my smicha in Venice, Italy, and got married in Toronto, and ended up in Basking Ridge, New Jersey, as a youth director. And it was phenomenal. It was really, this is the ultimate of everything that I was supposed to be. I'm a shliach, I'm sharing my love of Yiddishkeit with others. It's perfect. And then, well, I'm still a child of hippies. I'm still into my creativity. I'm still photography was my way of expressing myself. But I felt at that time a little too constrained by photography. And I bumped into this process called silkscreen, of taking a photo and transforming it into art. And that's where pop art comes in, because it was a movement, pop art of there's an artist by the name of Andy Warhol, who had a big impact on my early development as an artist. And taking a photo, pop is from popular culture. So he did Coke cans and other Campbell's soups and so on. My pop was Jewish pop. I did dreidels and shofars and hamantaschen and kiddush cups and Shabbos candles and so on very simple, straightforward, accessible art. That was where I started. But it got to a point that I couldn't do both. I got to a point, I was a shliach by day. I had some early success. Gallery in Lambertville, little town in New Jersey. And we got some press, and one article dubbed me rabbi by day and artist by night, because that's what it was. It was this perfect balance that I did my shlichus, came home, kids, bedtime, dinner, everything, and then I go to the basement and I would paint, and it was amazing. It was everything. It was everything I wanted, everything I needed. I was spiritually fulfilled. I was creatively fulfilled. It was great. And then I felt this imbalance. I got to a point I felt there was an imbalance, that all my chayas was going towards the art. I was doing my job, but it became a job. It became a 9 to 5. It started before 9, went till after 5, but there was an element of 9 to 5 that I was treating the shlichus with that was pasnish. That's not a problem. I have a responsibility. And you got art on one side, you got shlichus on the other side, you got rabbinics on the other side. I had to make a choice. And I pretty much knew which one was more important than the other. But nonetheless, I chose to reach out to my mashpia. I called my rabbi and I asked him maybe I should stop painting. It's getting in the way of the rabbi stuff. And what he told me changed my life. Because what he told me was, you got the wrong question. The question isn't, should you paint? The question is, how can you take the gifts that God gave you and impact the world in a meaningful way? And that conversation sat with me for a long time. It wasn't an instant, okay, I'm off. It took at least a year to build up the courage to recognize that my contribution was not as a youth rabbi, but as an artist. And in Torah, we talk about mitzvah, she'efshar lasas ha'idei acherim, and mitzvah she'efshar lasas ha'idei acherim. Some mitzvahs you can outsource. A bris milah, you outsource. You outsource to a professional. And then you see the male, he's holding, you hire him, he's there, he holds the knife and he says, okay, this is your mitzvah, you do it. Unless you want to hire me, make me your shliach to do your mitzvah. And there are other mitzvahs, of course, that you can't outsource. That these Torah, it depended on you. And I realized that my youth rabbi mitzvah was Efshar Lasas Ha'idei Acherim. I left, someone else replaced me, and they're doing an incredible job. I realized that my art is Efshar Lasas Ha'idei Acherim. It's not something that I can outsource. This is my contribution. This is my own unique takes. Again, we spoke early on about the elements of art and creativity is what you say, how you say. What you say is your subject matter. How you say it is your medium. Is it photography? Is it music? Is it dance? Is it, and how you share it with the world. So we talked about Harnaf and the fine gentleman at the end. What's your name, Rabbi?
Ben Zion Chanowitz.
Ben Zion Chanowitz. So we spoke about Harnaf, that Ben Zion was moved by the Pigu in Harnaf, the terrorist attack in Harnaf, and you made a mantle for.
We made actually 4 mantles.
You made 4 mantles.
4 different Sefer Torahs.
You should have. What was the 5th one? All 5 victims, no?
No, there was I think 4.
There was 4. Okay. Okay. And I made a painting. That so that we may experience the same things, but we each have a different perspective. And this goes back to what the Rebbe said to Handel Lieberman, and what the Rebbe said to Michal Mochnik, and what the Rebbe said to Baruch Nachshon, and what the Rebbe is telling all of us, that we each have a unique gift. We each have a unique ability. We each have a unique perspective on the world, us being a Torah Yid and a Chassid and so on. And our uniqueness is what we need to share. And we have to share our unique perspective with the world through the lens that we have. And that's why the Rebbe encouraged many artists to create, to share their perspective. So just to give you a little bit, yes.
That's one of your creations.
That's one of my pieces. Yeah, we'll end with that.
Why 12 Chassidim?
I'll explain 12 Chassidim because it fit really nicely on the canvas that way. That's the secret. No, the other answer is the 12 Shvatim. For everyone, the 3 of us we all have, but the Shvatim.
I was thinking 10 because it would be a minion.
So this piece inspired many other pieces, but I want to share with you. Bring it out. We're ready? We can't wait for it. Okay. So this piece really is emblematic of this concept. So you have 12 Chassidim, all marching to the beat of the same drum. And one guy's wearing orange socks. Maybe you better get in a little closer, but this guy over here is wearing orange socks. And this is my self-portrait. Why? Because I wear orange socks. But what's this all about? What's the concept behind this piece? You see him there? Yeah.
But you have a different color on the other.
As much color as I can get. One side gets orange, other side gets green, yellow. But that's you gotta spread as much color as you can. My yarmulke has a little bit of color too, But I'm still wearing a black hat. So we each have the same Torah mitzvahs. We each have the same Rebbe. We each have the same Yiddishkeit. But at the same time, we have to personalize our Yiddishkeit. We have to take one part of Torah mitzvahs and make it our own. I can't think of the terminology. That everyone should know this is your mitzvah. Lahavda, when your song comes on the radio, all your friends know, this is your song. It's our song. This is your mitzvah. That we each have the same 613, but we have to personalize. We have to take our uniqueness as a person and share that with the world. So one of the themes that I explore in my work that is really central to me, and I'm not sure if we've given it enough time, is the power of mitzvahs. And there's a farbrengen by Rabbi Yossi Paltiel. You can find it on the yeshiva.net. If you search Yud Aleph Nisan, 11 Nisan, you'll find it, and I highly recommend you listen to it. It changed my life. And what's the farbrengen about? The farbrengen is about the Rebbe's 10 Mivtzoyim. And the timeline of the Rebbe sharing the Mivtzoyim with the world. And the impact, the critical mass of neshamas, of Yidden doing a mitzvah for the first time, had a physical impact on the world vis-a-vis Shleimas Haaretz and so on, vis-a-vis saving Yidden Jewish lives. And the most famous example is of course the 6 Day War. It's already 50 years on from the 6 Day War. Is that mamash just before the 6 Day War, the Rebbe shared the Mivtzah Tefillin to go out into the streets of Eretz Yisrael and around the world to put Tefillin on Yidden. And the Torah world was up in arms of what's it going to impact and what's it going to do, and we all know the miracles of the 6 Day War. I think it got to the point, I'm going to be brief, but the Baba Sali was able to predict, the Tzaddik Baba Sali was able to predict every time there was a war in the borders of Eretz Yisrael. And I think it was 80, 81, again my details are a little shvach, that the Baba Sali predicted that there would be a war in Eretz Yisrael. And the year came, and the year ended, and there was no war inside the borders of Eretz Yisrael. So they came to the Baba Sali and they said, have you lost your touch? What happened? You made a prediction. And the Baba Sali's response was, how was I to know that the Lubavitcher Rebbe would make Miftzah Neshek, Neres Shabbos Kodesh, that Jewish women and girls would light Shabbos candles and would push the war into Lebanon. And that was a Lebanon war.
81.
It was in 82.
81, 82, whatever. Okay. This idea that Jewish women and girls can light Shabbos candles and have such an impact, it blew my mind. And one story from this Farbrengen, which really drives the message home, is that also in 81, 82, that the Rebbe came to 770 just after Pesach, and the Rebbe said that this coming Lag BaOmer that wasn't on a Sunday, that shluchim, the Chabad houses around the world, should make a big Lag BaOmer gathering and gather children and learn Torah, Avodah G'Mechsadim, Torah, Tzedakah, and Psukim, and so on. And every single day, the Rebbe came to 770, and the Rebbe said the same thing, that on Lag BaOmer, Chabad houses around the world should make, and they realized that Rebbe meant business. This wasn't just a passing idea. And they got extra phone lines in 770, and they were calling around the clock, and they were calling every single Chabad house and other Moully Chabad to gather children on Lag BaOmer to make a big Lag BaOmer parade or Lag BaOmer event. Torah Avodah G'Mechsadim. And then about a week before, the Rebbe said, specifically in Morocco, they should put tremendous amount of effort into this event. And actually, recently I told a story that someone was there. He said his parents were one of those children in Morocco. And then the Rebbe gave special instructions. There were 10 American Bachrim who were there learning shluchim in the yeshiva in Morocco, helping the community and helping grow Yiddishkeit. And the Rebbe said to these boys that they should get exit visas. They should get exit visas in case they need to leave at a moment's notice. These are the words of the Rebbe. So 9 of them are busy round the clock preparing and gathering and getting as many kids as they could. And one went off to the American consulate to get exit visas. So he's there, he's meeting the consulate general. And the consul says, okay, when are you leaving the country? And I'll get your exit visas and we'll put in the date of your flight. He says, oh no, we don't know when we're leaving. He says, you don't know when you're leaving? So what are you wasting my time for exit visas? When you know when you're leaving, come back, I'll give you an exit visa. He says, no, we need exit visas. And he quotes the Rebbe's words, in case we need to leave at a moment's notice. And the consulate general turns white. And he says to the Bachar, he says, what do you know? The Bachar says, I don't know anything. He says, you just said the words, in case you need to leave at a moment's notice, what do you know? So the Bachar says, listen, I only know one thing. There's a Rebbe. The Rebbe's in New York. And the Rebbe sees from one side of the world to the other. And the Rebbe cares about Jews all over the world. And he explained all about the Rebbe. And the consul general was very moved. You could see that he knew of this national security risk. That he didn't share any details of the Bachar, of course, but there was a national security risk. And this idea that the Rebbe had this vision, had this insight, had this awareness. So he says to the Bachar, maybe your rabbi has a solution to this problem. And the Bachar says, yes. The Rebbe said to gather the children around the world and learn Torah, Avodah, G'Mechsadim. And you could see the guy's face falls. What are you, crazy? We have a 9/11 about to happen. And you're going to gather the kids together and sing some songs? What happened in Casablanca in the early 80s? Nothing. Why? Because the Rebbe encouraged children from around the world to gather to do Torah, Avodah, G'Mechsadim, and that problem was alleviated. But this idea, the power of our actions, touched me so deeply that I'm continuing on this trend. So I have a lot of my work. I did a whole series on the Rebbe's 10 Mivtzayim of the Dava Gashmi, the physical item, the mezuzah, the tefillin, the Shabbos candles, in silkscreen in black. and then behind it is this huge explosion of energy. That the energy of a mitzvah, and I have other works with the energy of the mitzvah. I have another piece that I'm working on titled Habitat for Divinity. Dir b'tachtonim. We all know the idea of dir b'tachtonim. You know, in Chabad schools, we're children of the revolution. We're told about dir b'tachtonim, creating a physical space for God in this world. But how do I want to do it? Essentially, I'm just taking a mitzvah chart. Right? We've all had, we're aware of, either we've experienced them as children, mitzvah charts, right? The parent write a note, so-and-so did a mitzvah, and you bring it to the teacher, and the teacher sticks it on the wall. So how I say it, what I say is dir b'tachtonim. How I say it different to a mitzvah chart is, I want to make a house, and I'm working with an architect to build like a small glass house, completely made out of glass, completely clear, you can see from one side to the other. And then to invite people to come and engage, and to give them a shape of a letter, the Hebrew letters. They can choose a letter that connects to them, different shapes, all made out of transparent colors, bright transparent colors. And for them to write something on this letter, how can they make a dir b'tachtonim? How can they make a habitat for divinity? For them to write a positive affirmation, something that they're going to do, a mitzvah that they're going to do to change the world, to make a dir b'tachtonim, a habitat for God, and then to walk inside that space and to stick it on the wall. That they'll be sticky and they'll stick it on the wall. And if enough people come through and enough people engage with this piece, that together will transform what's a clear shell into full of flying osios, full of letters that create a dir b'tachtonim. So here this is just, a little bit, and again, it's using mitzvahs, using the energy of mitzvahs to transform a space from a clear shell into something. So that's my Chassidic art. I don't paint portraits. I'm not a terribly realistic painter. I'm a conceptual artist, a contemporary conceptual artist, but a Chassidic contemporary conceptual artist. It's about concepts. It's about ideas. Chachma is very negeya to me. The thought of the idea, the chachma of the idea, coming up with it, having a concept that I'm conveying, and then, so it's what you say is Chassidus. How you say it, each one is a different idea, and how you share it with the world. The whole point of it all is to share it with others. The whole point of the Mivtzoyim is to go out. This is the Rebbe's chiddush of to go out and to share, your energy, your love for Judaism with others. And I'm blessed that I discovered, through the help of the Rebbe, I discovered my avodah. That what's my avodah is not to be a youth director somewhere, but to be an artist. And I continue to come up with different ideas and different concepts. And hopefully, when we all find our uniqueness, when we all find our creative gift, and we share it with the world, together we'll bring Mashiach.
Thank you. Thank you.